Gonna bring the school board meeting to order. Roll call, Mike Ward. Bree Butler,
Here.
Jen Pendleton.
Here.
Mark Moody.
Here.
I'm Matt Benner. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Are there any agenda adjustments? Nope. So we're gonna move to public comment. Now, to start the public comment, just gonna let everybody know, we do not have to engage the public during public comment. There's a 3-minute window is what we allot for people to speak. What else? Is there anything else? Right? Didn't you, is that good?
Don't
Yep, each
identify-
person gets 3
Don't
minutes.
identify individuals. It's not to
Yeah,
talk
and
about
you can
individuals.
identify individuals during public comment. So I will start at the beginning of the list with Angela Acorn.
So, my name is Angela Acorn. I have been a resident of the borough for 22 years. And I just wanted to say that I'm disappointed with the school board's decision to remove secondary transportation from their 2025 budget without parental input or discussion. The school board claims that they are focused on transparency in what they do. However, I strongly disagree. In my opinion, there's been no transparency on their part regarding the removal of secondary transportation from the budget. In my opinion, they tried to push this through without letting anybody know that it was happening. Cutting transportation is just as detrimental to education as cutting teachers or academic programs. Whether the transportation is for 4, 14, or 44 kids, if they can't get to school, they can't thrive. It's the responsibility of the school board to find a balanced solution that puts the needs of the students, families, and taxpayers first, not their own agenda. Not all families in our town have the privilege of a parent or guardian available to transport their children to school. Not all students have friends who drive. Not all students are interested in or ready to drive themselves. Yes, some families in town can transport their children, but what about those who can't? What about those parents working second shift or a single parent household? Or families where both parents leave for work before the school bus arrives? These children rely on school transportation to access their education. They're entitled to the same opportunities as every other student in town. They shouldn't have to choose a school based solely on whether or not they can get there. Denying them transportation is denying them their right to an equal education. I've heard people say that's how it was in my day, but times have changed. There was also a time when we didn't have internet or cell phones, but you won't see those going away anytime soon, and neither should secondary transportation. It has been funded by the town for the last 20 years. Nobody wants higher taxes, understandably so. However, creating hardships for families and cutting transportation for education is not the answer.
Thank you. Doreen Moody.
I was just gonna comment after, if it was allowed, after some of your subjects that you were talking about.
So public comment, we have it at the very beginning of the meeting and the very end of the meeting.
Okay, so my concern is just a rumor. I heard back in the day that there's a possibility of changing the parking lot out front here due to the safety issues of people all alongside the road, all the way to my house. And so I was just here to comment, is that gonna happen? Because if we're worried about transportation, we're not gonna fix that, but we're gonna fix this driveway because all these parents aren't using transportation. That was my comment.
Thank you. Lee Smith.
I'm Lee Smith, I live in Noblesboro. I'm gonna jump on what Angie was saying about the transportation issue. I heard rumors that you're cutting the buses from Noblesboro to Lincoln next year. I get to work at 3 in the morning, my wife gets to work at 4:30. So, and my son is, how do you get my son to go to school as it is? Without giving him another reason to not want to go. I just don't understand the reasoning behind that, I guess. Unless my wife and I adjust our schedule truthfully, I'd rather pay a higher tax than to not have my kids get to school. And that's, Andy said it beautifully. That's all I gotta say about that, but it's like I said, making it hard for my wife and I, because I've been at my job 30 years, she's been at her job few. So either we're gonna have to switch our work, which, you know, that's really all I have to say. I just don't understand I don't understand the reasoning behind it, and seem like kind of secrecy behind it, but thank you.
Thank you. Peter, Gaby.
Peter Gaby, a resident of Noblesboro for 25 years. I understand there's going to be a presentation tonight of a preschool program. And I just want to put two thoughts in front of the budget committee. Number one, with the pressure that we're recognizing now on our budget, both the school and the town, any program that is covered by a grant, those grants run out. And historically, when those grants run out, we have not eliminated programs, we have added burden to the budget. Number two, it's my understanding that there are also parameters within the state on whether you identify children in a program who have special needs, and that if you do, those needs must be covered at the expense of the town until it becomes official in the state. That's another potential exposure that we don't know about until people come into that program. So I just want to put that in front of you guys so that all of these avenues are very carefully explored before you vote on anything to do with adding to the budget.
Thank you. With that note, pre-K presentation.
So there was gonna be a presentation tonight, but the budget for the pre-K was not ready. The Coastal Kids is the entity that we were looking at creating a public-private partnership with, and we didn't get the number to them in time to create like the final budget to kind of show folks. And I think it's been made clear to them and others that it can't have any type of impact on this current budget that's already been voted on by the school board. So until a lot of those questions can be answered, we can't move forward with making the presentation. For this information. So I hear what you're saying. More questions to be answered before it comes to coming forward.
Thank you. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes for the special meeting on March 10th. A second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting on March 18th.
Yeah, motion to approve them.
A second?
I'll second.
No. Mark? Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Chairs report. So we had a budget workshop April 9th to go over the budget we're proposing. We found out a few extra things. We cut a little, we added a little. I guess we have a rough budget to go with. The next regular meeting for the school board will be May 20th at 5:30. The last AOAS meeting, we signed the bus contract. We received a resignation, correct?
Yep.
For the special ed director.
I don't know, you want me to go back and look
That
at the
was
minutes?
it.
I think
That was
so.
it. It was actually.
We talked about the district moving forward,
Yeah, we talked,
trying to streamline it.
right,
And we talked about the challenges we're facing with special education.
right. And starting to talk about how we should go about special education, because that is all of our town's biggest expenses. As we found out, and it was said that Jefferson special ed is up
Over $1 million.
over $1 million in just special ed increase this year. And it's out of district placement, a lot of it, isn't it?
Out of district, when you start placing kids out of district, a private placement's about $150,000 per student. A public school placement runs about $100,000.
So the next AOS 93 meeting is May 7th at 6 p.m.
We will have that meeting because hopefully we'll have a candidate for the special education director position.
You say that again?
I said we will have that meeting. On mine, it says, I don't know if it says on the, if necessary, but mine
It says
says if necessary. It is necessary.
It is,
Well,
yeah.
we anticipate we'll have a candidate. We're doing interviews tomorrow.
Okay, facilities and maintenance report. John.
So we've been working in the building, trying to identify some of the upcoming needs of the year. And we're still working on that, some of the mechanicals and building needs on the exterior of the building, parking lots. Some of the air handling units and all that stuff are all under review. We're taking a close look at what's working, what's not working. Best way to get them repaired and up to date. I think everybody's currently aware that we are currently down to one person working in the custodial department. And it's stretching him really thin, and we're working on trying to get somebody to come in and do some part-time work to help him out and get things under control. And that's pretty much the meat of it.
Are there any options for contracted services
I've
to
tried
assist with cleaning?
I've tried 3 different ones, and none of them want to do it on a temporary basis because they have to hire somebody locally to come in and do it. So if you want to sign a year contract, yes, but if you need somebody for a few months.
Right.
And we've gotten
And
some
we've gotten
pricing,
somebody.
right?
Yeah, we got pricing.
Year's contract will run us,
Close to
80,000.
80,000,
For one.
one person
well, they'll bring in 2 people, won't they?
in the summertime.
In the summer, but
Yeah.
1 person at night.
Yeah.
And they'd cover, they actually said they'd cover a lot. I mean, they were basically getting 3/4 of the school done every night.
Yeah.
But at 80,000, that's,
We used to have contracted services
yeah, we
at
did
one point.
a year or 2 ago,
2 years
and
ago, I
it just
think.
wasn't, we were glad we were getting away from it.
Yeah.
Up until last year.
Yeah,
we
because
got
who we were contracting at night,
It was
it
very
was,
expensive.
yeah, it wasn't,
The company that I reached out to is somebody that I know. It's Casco Bay Cleaning. They're basically from southern Massachusetts to Fort Kent. So it's a very large company, very reputable. But it's tough to get somebody. We have somebody that we are looking at for a daytime lead custodian. And if that happens, it's going to be a very good addition for the school. He's very well-rounded, has a lot of experience.
Potential to start sooner than later, or
Later than sooner.
Later
later
than
than
sooner.
sooner? That's what I was afraid of. Okay.
not too late, but about end of school.
Yes.
Right.
So we're trying to look at all the options. I'm gonna do a schedule for Jack, so he's not working 12 hours a day. There'll be some things that get left behind in the school, unfortunately, but we'll get a schedule to get part of the school one night, part of the school the next, and try to get it under control. It's really tough hiring anybody right now.
Right. Is there a potential to look at a term appointment for like a 4-month appointment? We're talking about someone being able to start in the summer. Have we tried posting for something like that just to bridge the gap until then?
Well, I think this guy is
Yeah.
more or less, I don't even technically think it's been offered, has it yet, or has
Oh,
it been?
yeah.
Yeah, so we
Oh,
just,
so we don't even know if we're bridging the gap.
right,
Yeah.
you don't, and you don't know how big the gap is.
Right.
And that's
And it's not, I wouldn't say 4 months, it's what, 2 months?
2 months.
2 months.
So by the time we advertise and look, I mean, I think if we could just find somebody to maybe help us out a little bit,
Right,
even if it's only a day or 2 a week, just to fill the gap we need to fill.
right.
Anything would be help, but
Well,
the, how long has it been posted now? Been posted
That
for,
was for a full-time
3 months?
position, right?
that was the one applicant.
Oh, that was the one.
It's Jefferson, we've had one posted now for 3 months, we had 0 applicants. There are people that are actually qualified.
Right.
It's tough hiring anybody.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
So if anybody wants a part-time job,
Andy's good word.
Right?
Superintendent's report.
Yep. Been to 2 of the 3 college fairs that are the universities in Maine are holding for their graduating education, candidate education degrees. And just as you said, it's just as hard hiring teachers as well.
Yeah.
The numbers are just dwindling as far as the people to get into it. So on the March 10th, all 4 building administrators and myself were at UMF to meet with their seniors. I went up to UMO last Friday, and I'll be going to USM this Friday for theirs. It's tough because, as I said, the numbers are small. We get as many resumes as we can. I got about a dozen, I think, up at Orono, and shared those with our administrators.
Called on 2 today.
You called on 2.
Two-
Well,
2 of those resumes.
we didn't practice this, but this is segueing into what I wanted to say. I said this over at Jefferson. We're beyond the point of applicants coming to us and just getting that large pool of candidates. I mean, it used to be not uncommon for 30, 40 people to apply for a position. We do have to do what Adam just said. We have to actually become more of a recruiting approach. And I don't think there's anything wrong. I think I encourage the administrators to do what Adam did. So I'm glad he was able to do that. Someone said, well, why do the principals need to be? It really does leave an impression on possible candidates when they get to meet the individual principals or get to meet someone in person that has connection with each of the towns. We have a nice table set up. I think we got better at the second one. We've got a map of where we are because sometimes people don't know where we are. We've got pictures from all the communities on the wall. We post all our vacancies, and we have application packets ready to go where people can take them and print them. And we also have a code that they can hit and do it electronically. So we're trying to get our schools into the minds of candidates. So Bath Advisory Tech Committee, that's where our students from Lincoln will go to tech school. I had a meeting on March 19th. I have another one coming up on May 13th. Went over to Jefferson Village School on April 3rd and got to see members of the Noblesboro Community School students participate in a math meet. So that was fun to see. I had to leave because I had to get to
sorry.
Bristol. I had to get to Bristol for a budget meeting, so I had to leave a little bit early. But so I don't know. But it was just good to see, and it was an inter-district meet. So there was I think Jefferson Village had 2 teams, Noblesboro had 1, and South Bristol had 1. Those are the 4 teams that were participating. I have my Midcoast Superintendent's Association monthly meeting, April 17th, and I think that's all I have for you for right now. Oh, I do have one more thing, sorry. We've registered for a Drummond Woodson virtual training. It's open to any board members. It's Navigating School Policy in 2025 is the title of it. That will be held on May 20th. It's a virtual meeting from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock at the central office. So if there are any board members who would like to attend that, 9 to 11.
9 to 11. God, you want to run late or early.
AM, Michael, too. But that's, if anyone wants to come and join us for that, we'll be in the conference room at the central office.
What day is that on? What's the 20th on?
Oh,
What date?
give me a second, I'll tell you.
This Tuesday. Is that our next meeting?
May 20th.
It is.
It is?
Yep.
So the same day as our meeting?
Same day as the
Tuesday,
meeting.
so
Yep.
we don't figure that out.
Yep.
School board dinner.
Thanks. So looking, when you go up there, we've been doing that for years,
Up where?
recruiting.
Actually, my last year in the district I was in last year was the first year that we did it. I went to Farmington only. St. Joe's also does one. They do it in the spring, in the fall, earlier than these, and I didn't get notification of that one. But I'll look at hitting as many of them as I can.
I just didn't know if it had fluctuated over the years, like if you've been able to see how many.
It's decreasing as far as enroll. I think when we walked through at Orono, there was one applicant who came through, one candidate who came through was in the special education realm. One. And that's where the biggest shortage is right now. And overall, it's about 50% less than it was years ago.
Adam, principal's report.
All right, I'm gonna start off with a staff shout out for Reed Anderson and the tech team. They were 93. They organized the tech zoo that happened in the A-Tech building at Oakland Academy. They were highlighting the work that they've been doing with students and teachers in the district using Teach with Tech grant funds. There's a big student grant that came in helping purchase a bunch of cool things. So for instance, we've got we have a laser cutter right now. It's in the art room. It's being put to use by students. And also Reed's been doing a lot with some VR headsets and trying to get into as many classes as he can and connecting that with what students are studying in their classroom. So fourth grade students, for example, have been doing studying, planning a road trip to learn about the country, and one of their stops has to be at a national park. So the kids got to do a VR experience like in those national parks, and it's pretty cool technology. I got a chance to put it on for the first time, and I was at Zion National Park in Utah, and like had to sit down and it was some hike that was like really precipice, high precipice, and it was a little disorienting, but the kids are really engaged by it, and it just brings a little bit of liveliness to what they're studying. So it's definitely cool. All the tech folks in our district are phenomenal teachers, really working to get that integrated into what kids are learning about studying. Baseball and softball practice is starting up soon. Doesn't feel like it from a weather standpoint, but that's it's happening. Important announcement that the Little Mermaid musical is happening on the 17th. So this is coming up this week. We get the Waldo Theater. We've got a few open positions for next year that we posted. Our special ed case manager position for the SSC that has been posted, and we do have one applicant for that. We have a regular resource room special education teacher position posted. I haven't received any applicants for that yet. And we have our school social worker position that's been posted, and we have an applicant for that as well. So kind of a mixed bag update on the positions. And you can see from our enrollment data that we're at 138 students. And I did put for the board for other people to look into. I've been getting some questions about overall testing performance and testing data on our students over the years. So I looked into I dug into the state website they've been adding more and more data onto the state system, like putting in previous year's data on that to kind of track how students are doing, and put that out there for the board to review, and I can make that available to anybody who wants to request. But basically it goes back to the year 2015, the 2015-2016 school year. Just I think it's good for the community to know that in every single category, math, reading, and science, Noblesboro has outperformed the state average. So I just think that's something to be proud of, and highlight. So
So when it comes to the testing,
Yeah.
and this is something I think you've touched base with me on before, we've changed testing so many times. Is that,
Yeah.
so like the MTYA?
Yeah.
It's above state, but it's, like, it shows, of course, like a backwards percentage, but is it really a backwards percentage?
It's weird. It's weird because some of the, we go back to 2015, and that was something called the ECAP, it was New England Comprehensive something, whatever. It's like a bunch of all New England states. That was their test that everyone agreed to measure student achievement on, like to determine whether or not students were at grade level in those categories. And then it switched over to something called the Smarter Balance. And over time, now we're at Maine through-year assessment, which was it's a test that is built off of the NWEA test, which a lot of Maine schools were already using to measure individual student growth. And so the Maine through, the MTYA, the Maine through-year assessment, that test checks the box for a federally mandated report that determines how many students are at grade level. So the NWEA test, that didn't do it in the past, that didn't check off the federal box, but this test does, and it tells, you get data back on that to determine whether or not students are at their grade level in comparison to meet like state standards. So there's been a lot of changes over the years, and there was one year, of course, during COVID, where we didn't have no achievement tests were given during that year. But so some of those percentages, if you saw that, it looks like, wow, that's a huge drop, but it's just because the test was different. But that's every year the state has to have some sort of measurement to kind of show what students, where they're at compared to other students across the state.
Do they compare, if it's like a federal one, do they compare where we stand nationally?
So the NUIA test, so when the students take the NUIA, there's like a portion of the tests that are based on like some national norms, and there's a portion of the tests that are based on like state standards. So a student takes the test, and they basically are getting like two different scores that get reported home. One score that goes home is like, yeah, your kid is at grade level, or your kid is at above grade level, or below grade level. That's like one piece of that test. The other piece is nationally normed, so you can see what percentile nationally your kid would rank across millions of kids that are taking that test. Not every kid in the United States takes the NUIA, but it's a huge pool of students. It's well over 2 million students, I think, that take the NUIA every year. And so they can report it at, like, students get a RIT score, and that tells you, again, that's your national percentile. But then for the state's purposes, which is the federally mandated purpose, it tells you, is my kid at grade level standard, or is my kid work to do? So that's how that works. And I know that a lot of, you might read about the national test, the NAEP, the NAEP, and that's a test that's given nationally, but it's just given to random schools across the country, and so you never know. The school never knows until that year, like if you're going to take it. So I was a fourth grade teacher one year at St. George, and it just happened to be the year that we do it. So in addition to all the tests that we normally would take, we also have to take that national NAEP test, and then the school doesn't get that data back. That data just goes to the feds, and they report out state by state, like how students at the fourth grade level and at the eighth grade level are performing across the country, at each state or versus each country, or across the country. So that's
Appreciate that, Adam. Financial report.
Okay, so we have the document you're looking at, you say Noblesboro Central School FY25 draft projected close 4/15/2025. Looks just like your FY26 budget. So read that second line closely. You want the FY25 draft projected close. And what this is FY25 year we're currently in. We're looking at how we're going to end the year, which is coming right up. Okay, we got two and a half months, and then the fiscal year closes, and that's not a lot of time. And there's a lot of fast moving targets here that are shifting as we speak, really. So that's why I'm calling this a draft projected close. This is the first month, and this is essentially right up to date. We had one payroll in April so far for Noblesboro. There's another one to come. This is the first month that we've gone through and systematically combed through every line. I've met with Adam for quite a bit of time, then Adam took us and went through and added things. I met with Kelly, Special Services Director, and looked at some things that are shifting. We'll talk about those in a minute. I've talked to John Carroll about things that are happening here that we have to kind of make sure get accomplished. And then I talked to my own payroll team about looking at certain encumbrances of individuals and their benefits as personnel continues to shift in the year, and we've combed through all that. Typically the encumbrance column would just include what we've already received purchase orders for, but I've gone in now and added those things that we aren't able to do a purchase order for yet, but that we anticipate, we know pretty well we're going to get those for coming up. So this includes everything that I project. And some of the big things that are happening here, just give a sort of snapshot of what I've had to do here to kind of put all this together. When we set the budget last year, we anticipated 2 students being tuitioned to another school. And then that didn't happen. So those funds that we put in there for tuition were then utilized for other special ed needs, including hiring additional ed techs to support those students that didn't go to the other school. And now in the last couple of weeks, those 2 students are not going to other schools. And so we have tuition bills that are about to come in. So I've put those in. So we are now tuitioning out students to other schools, and that's not a even trade for what we had anticipated for the ed techs that we had hired. So now our burn rate has increased as we begin to close out, the last 9 weeks of school. So these aren't the big numbers that would have happened if it had been all year long. But because we sort of made other adjustments earlier in the year, are having an impact on us, as well as the transportation that it takes to move these students around to what is actually 3 different schools. And so I put all that in here and worked with Kelly to identify other things that would be associated with those individual student needs, including the occupational therapy that some may receive and things like that. We also have a very high burn rate on our contracted speech and keeping track of that, watching how that goes, as well as another contracted special ed worker in the building that we're looking at that. So it's not all these things were anticipated when we built the budget. So, and a lot of them are shifting as we speak. And as you know, we're looking at changes in your custodial staff that may happen before the end of the year. We don't know. And I'm trying to project in reasonable things for that. We have maintenance projects that are occurring and have to continue to occur. And the exact cost of those is a bit, up in the air at this point. I have not inflated any numbers here, nor have I intentionally left anything out. So the most realistic projection that I can give you today is that there may be $170,000 left in at the end of the year. 170, 143.11. Now, that's not a very comfortable cushion for me because I know how fast that can disappear. So we have always said that when April vacation comes, which it does in about 3 days, we turn off any supply ordering for the building because at that point, if you come back after April vacation and ordering things, you're not going to get it till June. That's basically school's out. You're actually, at this point, people will be buying things for next year. That's what next year's budget's for. So we should really, after this week, there shouldn't be any more purchase orders for your standard kinds of supplies and textbooks and things like that. We should just be looking at the maintenance things that we have to accomplish before the fiscal year closes, paying these bills, which aren't purchase order things, but the bills that are going to come in for these contractors. So where we're at now is that it's time to wrap it up, not be looking at burning any further funds on things that we can wait till next year, and to just manage those obligations that we have at this moment. And that's going to take a lot of work because they change and shift day to day.
Okay. That kind of might answer one of my questions. So I was looking at this earlier. Under like our capital improvements line, there's a line I'm going straight to.
Yep.
It says year-to-date encumbrance, 63.7. Now is that?
The 63.7 is because I was advised we were going to be resetting that line to do what's left to be done. And it's going to be our job to stick to that, not overextend that.
Okay, but all we've spent so far is 25,896.
That's all that has been paid out on bills.
Okay,
But there are things that are, the last bit here is a mix of both things we've already, bills that are in the pipeline and knowing that we need to finish up.
so and the capital enhancement and improvements line. So there's still the total left in there too,
Yeah.
right? Okay,
So there's money here, and John knows what money's here, and John and I are working on that, and I can give you sort of like what's left to do, and you can all talk about that.
yeah.
But
We were
the-
discussing those lines in our facilities and I had them backwards because of the parentheses around them. I thought that was.
Negative?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Usually I take a parenthesis as a negative. You're upside down, not a positive. So everything with a line around with the, slash marks around it is one that we have money left in.
No. This shows you it'll be over $2,500 on that line.
Okay, but that's not what we haven't
You have
spent
this year-to-date
63 something,
encumbrance.
right?
You have year-to-date encumbrance.
Right.
And that number is 63,700.
Right.
That's money that we're stocking away to get the work done that we.
Right,
still
but
need.
it hasn't been spent, right? See, that's where I'm trying to figure out the encumbrance, meaning it should have been spent, not socked away, so we know what,
This is a projected close,
okay,
and that's
so
what.
just project,
This is what we do in the last couple of months.
okay.
Is say this is where we intend to end up, and we've put the money into the right columns here. I mean, encumbrance is just the budget managers have talked and said, I'm gonna need this, I'm gonna need that. And what the actuals are, your actual column is what's already left the business office and checks with stamps on them that are gonna get cashed or have been already.
So the next one I will have for question is under special ed. The number, because of course we didn't really budget for it, right? or we used it elsewhere. The secondary sped tuition, that's where we're over. Is that right? Peter?
No, well, it's not that you're over or under. The line that says, let me pull it up here.
Ending in 990 is the one I'm looking at.
That line that you're looking at, that's your secondary students that are Lincoln Academy.
Okay,
And we get a number from the special ed department as to how many to project for tuitions for those. As most people in this room might be aware, you pay a whole other tuition for that student, right? So we get a number from special ed, say we see these number of students are going to need special ed services in the secondary schools, mostly Lincoln. But when they get there, Lincoln makes that decision again. And in this case, you have several more students than we anticipated. And so you have a much higher cost for your secondary than we thought you would when we did the budget a year and a half ago. So that ran higher.
Sorry to interrupt. Is Kelly is she invested in that as well at Lincoln? You said they make another determination and it could be a different number. Is our special ed director involved in that decision as well?
she is. So it's just
support
up to
all the
Lincoln.
Services that Lincoln then identifies the needs for, just to make sure that we have local entitlement money that follows the students all the way through the end. But she does not make that determination. And it isn't always higher. It's been up and down.
Okay.
So
It isn't like we're seeing a pattern where they always identify more and et cetera. I don't have any fears around that.
Or you could have a new student. You could have a
But
secondary
with that
student.
being identified that way, have we budgeted for that for next year?
What's that?
With that being identified this way, right, that there
Yes,
was
you have.
more, is it
The numbers
budgeted?
that essentially have already tracked these students into.
Can put them into, okay, that's why I wanted to just make sure. of
Yeah.
that.
And, but it's your private tuition, it's your elementary tuition that is just ramping up for the end of the year.
Is it the elementary special placement tuition that we're looking at?
Which line,
Yes.
what number is that?
There's actually two lines, there's the elementary public and the elementary private. And, or maybe actually, these are kind of a little mixed
Just above
together. I'll tell you what's going on.
Yeah, the 040.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought,
So on the projected close, we talked about using money for special ed techs during the school year. And now we might be running a little bit hot on trying. The projected close, does that take into account each month for those placements that we now have at a
Yes.
district and the transportation, everything surrounding?
Yeah, if you look at the line, elementary special placement tuition, you'll see that there's $120,000 encumbered.
Yeah.
That is essentially for your student at Great Salt Bay, a student at Bristol, and a student at Atlantic Academy. And, the billing for that all needs to be done. So you're not gonna spend 120 all next year. Great, but you're gonna get invoices from Great Salt Bay and Jefferson, because there was a student there in the fall in Bristol. We do all that billing at the end of the year. And that billing plus the $27,000 you're gonna spend between now and the end of school at Atlantic Academy, will come up to be $120,000.
Okay,
okay,
And,
thank you.
and that's what we're looking at there. Okay. Now, those bills haven't come yet. And those students, those agreements as to how they charge are done in advance, and then you get services that could be added, just like we saw that was added at Lincoln, right? That's why I don't like having just 170 here at the end, because things could just go boom in different places like that, and we could also see maybe one of the custodian positions filled, maybe they have the full health insurance plan, maybe that just adds on a chunk at the end here. If all these things line up, there goes 170, right? So that's why I'm like, anything we don't need to do, we should wait, because what I know needs to get done in maintenance, and what I know needs to get done in special ed, and then what I know are the inevitable surprises, no matter how carefully you look at this, anything we can stop, we should stop. But we're not in a situation where you should read that as alarmist. That's just my, honest approach to how you get to the right place. I might come back in June, tell you got 2 more weeks on it. You could go ahead and you could spend that $30,000 that John wants to do something in facilities ahead. Let's obligate it now because we can. But I'm not doing that in April. In April, I'm saying, start putting the brakes on.
appreciate it. Could we, I guess as a board, also get a copy of the exacts where we are?
The exacts is this actual column.
Okay, so that's exactly where we are to the nickel.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
And then and even some of the, and whether I've added it in or the encumbrance purchase orders, and sometimes we have blanket purchase orders where we'll put, WB Mason, we're gonna spend $3,000, it ends up, we start unencumbering things, we found out, oh, we thought we were gonna spend $3,000 on paper or things like that, we unencumber, and then we say, that's a blanket, okay, we're gonna release those purchase orders, so we can kind of go both
Okay.
ways. So like, at this point in the year, the encumbrances are all projections.
okay, Yep.
And the actual is what's actually left, and the rest is ours to manage going forward. And we will. So John and I are talking all about this stuff now, and Adams is gonna be needed to kind of help put the brakes on in certain areas, and let them approve every PO when it reaches me after it's come up, until we have a conversation and understand it has to happen or doesn't need to happen. I've already started turning some down in other schools and say, you don't need to do this now, you can wait, And then working with Kelly, and also just watching those invoices that come in and kind of checking them off my checklist, how much should I put aside for that, how much is it? That's the focus I give the budgets, the FY26 budgets from essentially October to March is the same level of focus from April to June that I now do.
appreciate it.
Yep. You're welcome.
A nomination of Matthew Buckwalder, middle level math and science.
You want to speak to that?
Yeah, so Matt is a highly respected teacher at Lincoln Academy. He's been there for quite some time, and he threw his hat to the ring and really impressed the entire committee. Again, a teacher, he's got big shoes to fill, and a big legacy to live up to that Mr. Will is walking away from. But I think we're feeling very confident that he's up to that challenge. It's a definitely good hire.
This is probably the time for that other announcement as well.
Yes, so the other announcement that I need to make is I notified staff today that I've accepted the position of assistant principal at Camden Rockport Elementary School. It was not an easy decision for me. CS has been an absolute highlight for me professionally. I just want to thank the board for this opportunity to grow as a leader and to serve the staff and the students and families of the work.
And that's not 100% official yet, so tomorrow I'll post the position, but I'll post it as anticipated.
Okay.
So the Camden board will be voting on it tomorrow night at their city's meeting.
Appreciate your time here.
So I make a motion to deny.
The board.
I'll prepare a statement for next time.
Do we have a motion to accept the nomination?
Yeah, so
I'll make a motion to accept the nomination of Matthew Buckwalder, middle level math and science teacher.
I'll second.
any discussion? All in favor? We start with a 1 year, or no? Is it a probation thingy?
Well,
Start?
teachers are probationary for 2 years, and then
2
they go
years.
on to a continuing contract status after that.
Okay. Old business. Budget. So, Jen, we'll give you a quick, I guess, follow-up. I don't know if anybody's brought you to par.
Yes.
Okay. So we ended, as you were probably told, we ended up with another out-of-district public tuition that needed to be placed, which we were basing them on 85,000. And I think, if I correct me, we took 10,000 because we had two of them, and we dropped it to 80
Correct. We
per
We're
person.
seeing these things range from 65 to 95, so we looked at 85 as an average, but then we decided to drop that down to just an 80 average. Just keep it on the, because we also looked at what we anticipate the needs of those students. So we're going as low as we can on budgeting for these two out-of-district placements. But we did shade it down to what we could.
And we also removed 2 regular ed techs. And I actually had a quick question, Adam. I got a Google Drive from you that said 10.5 total. Is that the actual total with the
That includes like our library and tech, and that includes our Title I and tech.
It does. Okay, so it's 10.5 that you're counting. Okay.
And we removed the contingencies for secondary.
We did, and that's something I wanted to bring up.
Before you bring up health insurance also.
Well, health
Yeah,
insurance, we found out went 9% instead of 8%, so we had to add back in for health insurance.
Okay, now go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Glad I'm
Your
all right.
permission.
So I actually thinking about it, I'm not good with cutting both contingencies. My thought is we've been using them every year for the last few. Last year, I think we used both of them before we even finalized the budget. So I personally would rather add 1 contingency back in. I think we may end up using it. I'd rather, I know it's been said we can go and ask. I'd rather not ask. I'd rather it be there. I don't know anybody else's thoughts.
So my thought is if, I mean, they asked for bare bones, and if they want bare bones, that's something that can be scrapped, and they know the risk. Them, they being like selectmen and budget committee, they know the risk associated with bringing that line to 0. And they were okay with it and said, you know, all you have to do is ask if that happens. So I feel like if we're bringing bare bones, I would take them still, but I understand the point too, because we run the risk of going in the red. And it wasn't that many years ago, we did have a budget go in the red. So that's not good either. Peter doesn't want to see that either.
Any other food for thought?
My thought is they've asked us to take out 150. We're going back to them, not only not having taken out 150, but returning and saying, hey, we're adding on,
18.
right? So at that point, I think we might as well ask for the contingency. And just keep everything clean and not have to have any elections. I don't think it's the type of election that's gonna embarrass anybody, because you're not
You may go into
to the town for
For more.
because you're not pointing somebody out for their special
needs.
needs. Exactly, it's just because somebody entered the town, but it's also not a great way to enter Noblesboro. So at that point where we have to approach the budget committee, having added money already, I think we might as well
Leave it at-
ask for the contingency.
Ask for it
Add it
in,
back-
add it
add
back
it in.
in? Okay, you had me confused for a minute.
I know, sorry, I
That's all right.
wasn't very eloquent.
No, that's
I
all
was saying put it in.
Ken, Mark?
Yeah, I can agree with Bree, just to ask for the contingency, because we don't know. You never know what, as the year goes, what we might need, so.
Jen?
I can see this going either way, but I say we add in the contingency, present this to the budget committee, see what their thoughts are. And then, you know, they'll be very aware at that point that we either add this in and ask us to remove it, but then, you know, that awareness level will be there. Whichever way you go.
So Peter, just to be sure, if we added the contingency back in, it's 15,490.
490.
Okay,
That's inclusive of the insured value.
that's what I thought, right,
Yeah.
it's 1480 plus 10%, right, or whatever, somewhere.
Almost exactly, but it's 14,881 because
81,
I round up the change at the end.
Gotcha.
But, yeah.
okay, so that would be adding 15,000. So that would bring us. What'd you say the number was again?
5,553,406.02
Right, plus.
plus 15,490. I get 568,896.02.
568, what?
896.
896.
02.
Okay.
Say that again, please.
568, 889602.
Thank you.
Now, I know you probably can't do it that quick, but what's that bring our percentage up to?
I can almost do that, but give me a second.
Because really, I thought our percentage was high. I thought you were over 10.
It'll be back at 10.
It will be back at 10. Right around there, won't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be close if it's not like 488 or something. I mean, 988.
Right. Has there been any more talk with Lincoln?
They reached out to me again. No, I haven't got any.
More ground.
For people who don't know, Mike's talking about the transportation question. Jeff reached out to me after hearing, obviously, that there was, just decision was made. And I asked him, I said, what is there anything Lincoln can possibly do? They were going to look at the routes. He hasn't got back to me with an official answer yet, and see if the bus that currently runs through Jefferson could make at least one, maybe two stops somewhere in Noblesboro. But I have not heard back from him yet.
Okay.
I told him I was meeting with this group tonight and that I would chat with, he didn't think he'd have an answer for me by tonight, but it's on the discussions are going on.
Right, okay. I would say to that a decision hasn't been made until the town votes on it.
Correct.
Technically, so.
Yep.
9.77.
9.77. We're close.
So that number, everybody good with going to the budget committee with
Is
it?
someone making a motion to put that back
Yeah,
in?
can I get a motion to put that back, the 15,000.
490.
490.
In the regular ed cost.
I move that we put 15,490 back in the regular ed cost center.
Any more discussion on it? All those in favor? All those opposed?
What was that vote?
It was 5-1.
Thank you.
4-1.
Mike, you abstained, I'm assuming. I mean, you
I was
voted
letting him
no.
vote.
He was in both.
Should adopt this budget too.
If that's the one you're going to take to the next level, yeah.
So basically, the last question is make sure everybody's good with this budget, and this is the one we want to take. Been over it a lot. Can I get a motion to?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
You want to
You want to make your motion though?
the amount? You want to make the motion the amount?
I don't remember what you said the final number was.
505 million.
Yep.
Hold on, I wrote down wrong.
5,688,9602.
Those two fives.
Adam, did you get those numbers?
Mike, you motion it?
Yeah.
Second. Any more discussion on it? All those in favor? All those opposed? New business. Capital Reserve.
That might have been just a carryover from one
That was a
discussion. That was a
carryover, wasn't
carryover, I think so, yeah.
Okay. Before we go into public comment, I wasn't even gonna bother say anything, but I just feel it's easier. So I want to say, we've talked for the last couple of years about cutting the Lincoln Academy bus because of the expense. At times, we have more students on it, probably at the beginning of the year. At times, we have less students on it. This year, the bus contract is $86,000 per bus. So we, as a school board, unanimously decided that this expense was getting too costly for the townspeople. And I will say that we have two jobs sitting at this table. It is to give the kids the best education possible for the most reasonable price, and it is to do our due diligence for all tax-paying citizens. So our removal of the bus, it wasn't to undermine anything. It wasn't to do any harm to anybody. It is in, as we thought, in our best interest for the town to remove this bus, have talks with Lincoln, see if we could do something else. I would also like to state that everybody sitting at this table has kids that will be looking for that bus that's not there. So therefore, everybody sitting at this table will need to find transportation for their kids. So that, just to let that be known that this is a hard decision, but it was one we didn't feel was necessary at this time for the added expense.
So we want to be treated the same way that Jefferson. and
Yeah, we're just
Whitefield.
looking to be fair treated. So Jefferson and Whitefield pay so much per head for Lincoln Academy to pick up their kids.
Now, that is one thing to remember, though. If
It's
we
per
were,
head.
if we
And
were
we
to do
didn't
something with
budget.
Lincoln Academy, that would be a per head cost, and that is
Right.
not in your current budget.
It isn't, no. But
Is it ready to rent contingency now?
That's right.
And I know from the cost of those Jefferson things that.
they don't spend that much, right?
That would cover
Right.
if you were able to
Yep.
get that kind of deal.
And I will also say, for Noblesboro, South Bristol, and Bristol, right? We should all be treated equally. We don't provide transportation to Madomic, so we have kids that go there. So that being said, I'm gonna go into the second public comment. And this time, instead of reading off this paper, if anybody has anything they'd like to say, just raise your hand and I'll either point or call out at you.
I'm just curious if somebody could explain how we get to April before we decide that some kids that needed an out-of-district placement who were supposed to need it, then didn't need it, and now we've got 9 weeks left, and we suddenly make that change. We couldn't have made it through 9 weeks.
Placements are IOP decisions. So that's the.
Those occur throughout the year, and things can change with the student's needs.
And also, there may not be placement, right? So like some places, we may be on a waiting list. So there may not be a slot open for that child, and if one opens up, then we're allowed to move them in.
Thank you.
Yes.
As I understand it, the AOS budget was approved in January, but I believe the budget year goes until like June, the end of June.
It's the same, they're all lined up the same fiscal years.
How come is it always gonna be the practice to approve that budget in January? You're gonna move it further down the road?
Nope, it should have gotten approved in December, but it didn't get approved in December, so a second public meeting was held, and that was in January.
So can I also address this just real quick, just so we can make this short? We do that budget so every other town can budget for their budgets. So usually Noblesboro's budget's already done, right? Meaning our budget, when we talk to the budget committee, the school board talks to the budget committee in January. So the AOS budget has to be set long before any town in the AOS goes to set their budgets, because we have to include it in our budget. So there would be no way to move the AOS budget anywhere except for after July. So December is usually when we try to finalize all that. This year it only ran into January because it was voted to shut it down, and then it was voted to add it back in. So other than that, we're usually all done the second to last week of December with budgets.
I have a question, both the Jefferson Whitefield. I went to Lincoln Academy and I asked them about that. And they said that that has been something that's been going on for years. It was a decision that was made between some guy named Dave Sturdivant and a Jefferson board member years ago. And that is kind of grandfathered, their $3 per head thing. And that they also told you that they are not in the transportation industry and they are not interested in transporting kids, and they're not gonna do that.
Thank you. So actually, I'm not going to go into deep discussion, but I will comment to this because I have every email that verifies the complete opposite. Meaning we were going to go into talks with them. They reached out to me before we even went to talks and said, I'm sorry, we don't have room on the bus. It was never told to us that they are not in the transportation business, and I agree they're not, nor is Noblesboro Central School in the transportation business. That may have been a long time ago that they did make that decision. Doesn't make it not that it shouldn't be an equal playing field. So that's why we've still been trying to talk with them, see if we can work something out. Robin?
I just have a quick question about the custodian insurance,
Sure.
because back in March's budget, it was 23,000? 12,000, and now it's 37,000, so it changed,
What's that? The,
like the
Custodian
health
insurance. So
yeah, so, okay, that's great. So we hadn't budgeted for a full family plan in case somebody took it. Because the people that did work here weren't taking full family plans. I actually brought it up. If we hire somebody that wants a full family plan, we legally have to give it to them. So it needs to be in that budget. So the same with ed techs. We need to budget, say ed techs are getting done or whoever, we need to budget planning on them taking a full family plan. So the custodian we're trying to hire, not saying he's gonna take a family plan, but if he wants it, it has to be there in the budget.
So would that be offset then by a cash in lieu if they didn't take it?
Yeah, if they decided to take cash in lieu.
or they could take a single plan.
Or they could take a single plan instead of the family. But if we don't have it in the budget for a full, right, then now we're in the negative already in one line item.
We do that for every position, teaching position, a tech
It's
position.
just a safeguard, and it carries over as a carry forward if we don't use it. Thank you. Richard?
I didn't sign up, but I'd just like to take a moment to thank Adam for his service. I really think everyone knows that his heart is in the right place. He's done a great job with the kids. So often as a select person or on the budget committee, we have to look at the financial impact and going deeply into the budget, look what we can say, but I really appreciate what he's done.
Policies.
That's just a quick update from me to you.
Okay.
And I can get you copies of this if you want. The policies at the federal level have changed as far as Title IX goes. So I've identified 5 policies there that have, the language has changed in them. So you had the language prior to a couple of years ago. The language changed a couple of years ago. Now you can revert. The quick way to do it is just to revert your policies back to what they were back prior to 2022. There are some legal references that have to change on those policies though, but that would be the only change. It wouldn't be wording. If the board feels comfortable, we can just do that. Or I can share with you the MSMA version so you can, it kind of indicates why the changes have been made. And I can share with you what your current policies are. And perhaps also, if we can find them, the 2022 version. So I think you can look at all 3 of them. But most, Great Salt Bay, for example, they just reverted back to their previous policy. But if you want to look at those, I didn't print all those off for you, but if you want them, I can get them to you. And it's not a decision we have to make tonight.
For those
But we will.
revisions, do you have to have a first read, second read?
If you just revert back, you wouldn't have to. If you make changes to them, and technically, if we're changing the legal references in them, we are making changes to them. It probably wouldn't hurt to have a first and second read.
So we probably ought to throw those on the agenda for the next
For next
meeting.
one. Yep, we can
Take
have
it
those. We can have those in
first
hand.
read.
Yep.
I'd like to look at them before.
Yeah, I'll get them to you.
Me too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll get them to you. I'll get you the
Well,
MSMA
do a first read
draft.
anyway,
May
Right?
as
Yep.
well call them.
Yeah,
Yep.
just for safety.
Right.
My hope is that the old policies just weren't written over for the new language. I'm hoping that this is the old one and the current one. If not, we would have to go back and rewrite.
Okay. As of now, we're gonna.
Future topics?
Future topics?
Do we have any?
Since there was interest on it tonight, can we put the topic of the parking lot as a future board topic to bring up at the next meeting for discussion? That way.
Yep. Could even
Put out there what we have for information on it.
could even address it now if wanted to, right? Everybody good with that? So to address the parking lot, the ladies that have donated the land, one of them actually had medical things done this winter, so I have not been comfortable to go sit down with her and figure out the paperwork. But she donated an acre of land right adjacent to our parking lot. Now, there has been a local contractor that has been willing to say, cut it off, and just take the wood. There's also another local contractor that has said he would stump it. So we're moving ahead, but slowly. So I think in the next couple of years, we would really like to have that set forth in motion or have an area that we can use and get people out of the road for safety, because it is a safety concern. Good. Any other future topics? No? Can I have a motion to go into executive session? For
Make a motion to go into executive session for condition of property one MRSA subsection 4056C.
a second?
A second.
All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you all for coming.
6:35 PM.
Dandelions are coming up too. I had some at the house today.
Did you pick them all?
I took a picture.